All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to today's Your Author program from Facebook and YouTube. My name is Matisse Moser, young adult librarian here at the Junipero Serra branch of the Los Angeles Public Library, and I'm here today with my colleague, the indubitable Diane Olivo-Posner, principal librarian of engagement and literacy over at LA Public Library.
Thanks, Matisse. It is our pleasure to host the Your Author series today. We want to take a moment to thank our generous donors, the Lenore S and Bernard A. Greenberg Fund, and the Library Foundation for helping the library bring these amazing author and illustrator programs to all of you.
That's right. Now, before we get started, we just want to remind everyone, please feel free to share your thoughts, comments, and ask questions using Facebook and YouTube at any time. We're going to have a Q&A section today. We'd love to hear from you. Also, please email EC Department up there on the screen, Education Department, that whole thing, to be entered into an opportunity drawing to win a copy of Samira's book, Internment.
Thank you, Matisse. Now, let's dive into our program. Author Samira Ahmed is a New York Times best-selling author, and her prose has been featured in publications such as Jaggery Lit, The Femme, Claudius Speaks. After attending the University of Chicago, she spent time as an English teacher and as a nonprofit professional, helping create 70 small high schools, in New York City, and secure billions of dollars, another in funding for public schools. Samira currently resides in Chicago, where she reads, writes, and hunts for the perfect pastry. Oh, that's my kind of woman. Thanks, Samira. Welcome, Samira.
Hi, everyone. Listen, I think that everyone should have a lifelong quest for the perfect pastry. I feel like it's a very inclusive hobby. Everyone can get into it. It supports community bakeries, and it brings people joy.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And it's an excuse to eat apple fritters more often. So I can definitely get behind you on that.
I'm like, if I had to have an apple fritter every day, I would be like, I'm okay with it. I will suffer for my art.
Well, thank you so much for taking your time out of your day to be here with us, braving the outside heat and all that good stuff. We can't wait to learn more about you, your creative process, your work bringing the book to life, and all that good stuff. So we've got some questions to come at you with. Are you ready?
All right. I'm ready.
You look so They're like, what's the question going to be?
It's like, wait, I didn't study. I should have crammed. Okay, I am prepared, sort of. Go.
One. What's your social security number? No. So, what allowed you to get the book written, illustrated, published, and distributed? And I'm saying what allowed you to do it. So that's a big question. Like, what allowed you to write it? What forces were out there that inspired you? What maybe was a roadblock? Just walk us through the process.
Mm-hmm. So I used to teach high school English, and I would talk to my students a lot of times about how when you're a kid, anywhere you go, especially if you meet a stranger, there's somebody always asking you, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right? Especially I taught a lot of juniors and seniors, and there are kids getting ready for the world beyond high school. Where are you going to go to school? What are you going to do? Blah, blah, blah. And I always feel like, dang, that's kind of a tough question. And people ask it of kids starting at a very young age. Like I see people asking it of 8-year-olds, and I'm like, a first grader could be like, I want to be a fire truck when I grow up, And when I was a kid, I had 3 answers, and they were ballerina, tennis player, and doctor. So writer was never part of that. And it was ballerina because I just literally liked the tutus. That was it. Tennis player because I had this crush on a tennis player. And doctor because I was I'm Indian, halfway there. And so one of the things when people ask me how I kind of got into writing, I always say look, it wasn't always my childhood ambition or dream. And I think it's cool if it is your ambition or your dream from a very young age. And some people know that. Mm-hmm. But I think that one thing that really helped me along this publishing journey is that I was open to having different dreams. I think that was something that was helpful to me. And I think a lot of that was maybe I mean, maybe some of it came just because I was always encouraged to be a reader. My teachers always, encouraged us to write, even just on the side, like on our own. So I did that. Like I have journals like going back to 5th grade, like, and high school with like really bad angsty poetry and stuff like this. And so I think when it came along where I sort of got an idea for a book, I sort of was like, just give yourself a chance. Like the whole world, a lot of times you're facing a whole world of no. So why not just say yes to yourself?
All right.
And I think that the worst thing that can happen is failure, right? Mm-hmm. But I guess because I was older, I was like, I'm a human. I fail at stuff all the time. And hopefully I learn a little bit from it. And I was like, well, it's worse to risk. I mean, it's worse to not take a chance. Right. And I think that was stuff that sort of came, I think that was just part of how I grew up a little bit. So that was probably a mix of things. So I think that's like one piece of it. And, I also had friends and family who were like, when I told them, I'm like, well, I'm 40 now. I think maybe I'm going to try a whole different thing and try to write a book. They weren't like, what? You're too old to try this. You're too whatever. But instead they were like, go for it. Read us a chapter. Tell us what this is about, And, I think I'm also pretty fortunate to be able to have had, just like the space, like the physical space and time to be able to do it. And I think it's also really important just to have, you got to believe in yourself. You got to be willing to be tenacious for yourself. I think that's important. And I think I saw that in the world around me, like growing up, just in the people who are around me. And when I see people working so hard, I was like, yeah, I think that's something I should try. So a lot of times when I talk at schools, I talk to young people about that a lot, because I think that's so important, like saying yes to yourself, even if the world around you is saying no. And that comes up, and that's a theme that kind of goes through a lot of my books. So yeah, I don't know, I guess it's come around for me.
So good. Oh my God. I was just thinking about that when you said what you thought you'd be as a kid. And I was like, I always wanted to be a pilot. Never had librarian in the top 10 at all. So that's just, and then to come to it as, and have your family support you. That's just like really inspiring. Mm-hmm. And knowing that you fail and it's okay. You learn from it. But, I know when you're younger and you're like, I can't get anything wrong, which is, not true.
I know, but I do think that, young people face a lot of pressure, external pressures and expectations to know, to be mm-hmm. perfect, to get it right the first time. And I was like, I've definitely had those anxieties myself and still do. I think we all do, right? Who wants to fail? But one of the things that I tell people a lot is that my very first book, Love, Hate, and Other Filters, the first draft of it, the very first draft was 120,000 words. Which for people who don't know how long that is way too long for a contemporary novel. It was published, that would be like a big, high fantasy novel. It was published at 65,000 words. So that means there's 55,000 just extra words that no one sees, and they're just sitting on my desktop. Now, I could have been like, wow, that really sucked. Why did I have so many extras? But I kind of realized that in the process, well, this is kind of how I was learning to be a writer. And sometimes you need to understand that the imperfections or, quote unquote failures are really just the next step to getting it right.
Yeah. All right. We're going to go to the next lovely question. And it's, okay. We would love to hear you read one of your favorite passages from the book.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to read just the first page or two. I really like reading the first page or two of Internment. I, for a short while, also worked in a library. When I was in college, I actually worked in the special collections department at my university library, which is so cool because I got to work with rare books and even in the book restoration lab. Ooh. And so I have a special, I think everyone here obviously loves books and has a special affinity for books, but I also, so I'm just saying that because in this very first part, it's especially almost like painful to me what I had to put in here. So I just want to, just a little bit of a info. Let me get my old lady reading glasses on. Okay. This is the first chapter of Internment. I strain to listen for boots on the pavement, stomping, marching, but there's nothing. Only the familiar chirp of the crickets and the occasional fading rumble of a car in the distance, and a rustle so faint I can't tell if it's the wind or the anxious huff of my breath. But everywhere it's the same as it's always been. The perfectly manicured lawn of Center Square, the gazebo's twinkling fairy lights, the yellow beams from the porch lamps at every door. In the distance, I see a funnel of smoke rising into the air. Most of the town is at the book burning, so I should be safe, or at least safer. I don't measure time by the old calendar anymore. I don't look at the date. There's only then and now. There's only what we once were and what we have become. 2.5 years since the election, 2 years since the Nazis marched on DC, 18 months since the Muslim ban, 1 year since our answers on the census landed us on the registry, 9 months since the first book burning, 6 months since the exclusion laws were enacted, 5 months since the Attorney General argued that Korematsu v. United States established precedent for the relocation of citizens during times of war, 3 months since they started firing Muslims from public sector jobs, 2 months since a virulent Islamophobe was sworn in as Secretary of War, a cabinet position that hasn't existed since World War II. 1 month since the President of the United States gave a televised speech to Congress declaring that, quote, Muslims are a threat to America. I thought our little liberal college town would fight it longer, hold out. Some did. But you'd be surprised how quickly armed military personnel and pepper spray shut down the well-meaning protests of liberals in small, leafy towns.
Okay, can I just say real quick? So, something I learned about writing in college, and I just kind of like it, it's if you're going to do a story, treat it like a prison. Just come out and just bam! And those first 2 pages do that. Like, you open up the book and you go, whoa. I mean,
Whoa, yeah.
I'm at a different time. Stuff is going down. I just loved that when I was reading it. I got to tell you that. That's fantastic.
Thank you so much. I think that's partially why I wanted to start with a book burning because, like I said, you know, I worked in a library. You are librarians. We have, I mean, to me, the concept of a book burning is amongst the most heinous. You know, it's just such a horrifying act. You're like burning knowledge, right?
Right.
And so, I wanted to start with something that was shocking.
Yeah.
Hopefully a book burning should be shocking to people. And then I followed it with like, okay, you think that's bad. Let me show you all these other really bad things too. So.
Oh, not even that. You show us something bad and you're reading it going, yeah, this is fiction. I've seen a book burning in a book. And then you say, no, here's why it's plausible. Here's another reason and another reason. And you slowly go, oh God, this is terrifying. And then with that mindset, the book starts. It's genius.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So good.
So moving on, I guess. So, like you said, this isn't your first YA novel. And I was just curious, what about writing for teens speaks to you? Why is that your thing? Like Layla herself, she's so fleshed out. She's that kind of protagonist where she does stupid things and you don't think it's bad. You think, no, don't go in there. Don't do it. But that's the kind of person she is. And I'm wondering, is there any of that in you that bled into her? Any of her that came into you? What is that?
Well, she's probably a lot braver than me. I mean, I do. I like to write stories of what I call revolutionary girls, because I think revolutions can be a lot of different things. Like, you know, in my first book, it was like a quieter revolution. And I even actually have a discussion about this where a beloved aunt is saying to the protagonist, you know, revolutions can sometimes be just a personal revolution where you're just realizing who you are and speaking the truth about who you are. And don't underestimate how powerful and important that is. And then sometimes you're like, what Internment and with Layla, you're like, well, the revolution's got to be a lot louder and I've got to step up. So I love telling the story of revolutionary girls, but my girls are probably They're probably braver than me. So maybe I'm writing it to hope that I can be a little bit braver and courageous if the time comes. But I love writing for young people because, I mean, I taught high school, so I obviously love that age group, but also I think young adult fiction and this age is such an interesting age to me. I mean, it is what I call, I think writing young adult fiction is like writing into the realm of possibility is what I call it. Because, you know, when you're a young person at that age, you're kind of like on that cusp. You're like between childhood and adulthood. It's kind of this liminal space. And I see it, I imagine it just like as this place where there's all these doors. And the doors are closed, but they're not necessarily locked. Like you get choices, like what door am I going to try to open? Now, sometimes you're going to open a door and you're like, I don't want to go behind that door. Door number 1 is not a good door. And then you're going to shut it. And sometimes you're like, I really want to go through this door. And then you're like, I'm having such a hard time getting it open. And you're like, I got to break this door down. I'm going to do like what it takes to like get myself through here. And then sometimes you open a door and you're like, this is actually a pleasant door and I'm hanging out here and I like it, but maybe I want to try another door that's going to lead me down another path. So I just love this notion of possibility that exists in that age group and in this kind of literature. And I think, you know, I think eventually maybe I'll write adult novels too. I've written like some shorter adult pieces, but I think a lot of times like the middle-aged novel is about doors closing and the young adult novel is about doors opening. And I love that exploration of doors opening. And, you know, also like, honestly, teen life has an element of drama in it that I also enjoy. I mean, there's like this very, you know, feelings and stakes are very like, it's visceral, it's overt. And, you know, a lot of teens maybe are naturally butting heads with, you know, their parents. Like, I think it's also, that space is interesting too. Like for parents, like being a successful parent essentially means you're going to equip your child, give your child everything they need to move away from you, to be totally independent, right? That's the goal. I mean, and that causes such friction because, you know, some parents then are like, wait a minute, too independent, come home, come back to the nest. No, don't do this. And then sometimes the child is like, wait, no, I want more of this independence. You gave me these tools. Now I'm using them. Why are you like, you know, getting in a snit about it? So I think that space is also interesting to examine. And that's why, you know, in a lot of my books, I mean, in all my books so far, the parents are present. Mm-hmm. And I'm also like an immigrant kid. And so my characters are, you know, immigrant kids. And I think for immigrant kids, you know, parents do loom large.
Yeah.
On the scene.
Yep.
You know, I like that you mentioned the inherent drama of being a teen. Something I kept enjoying while reading the book was all these bad things are happening, and then Layla and Aisha are going to go, and also, what about prom? And like, from the perspective
some people don't like that. I really wanted to, that was important for me to include. And she's, I mean, even when they're saying it, she's like, I know this is ridiculous because really we're literally incarcerated illegally by our nation. But, you know, also they're just teens and they're just want to live their life. And, you know, we're human beings and we have weird, complicated feelings. And it can't all just be like, okay, you know, the revolution nonstop without me thinking about anything else and wishing, dang, I really wish I could just play, you know, my tennis match with the tennis team and buy my prom dress.
Yeah.
You don't want to be Luke Skywalker all the time. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, exactly. You just, I mean, you know, it's,
I don't know.
I think it's important for YA books, especially to have that too, because I just don't think it's, I mean, books for adults too. I mean, we're just complicated. Humans are complicated. We have different, sometimes contradictory feelings. So,
yeah.
But yeah, the teen drama exists. I mean, I taught high school. I know.
Yeah. You've seen it all. When you were just talking about the doors, I was like, she needs to write a book like that. Some, you know, a whole book, a novel about you open this door, you go in, and then I love that.
I'll write it down.
For the next
taking a note.
Yeah. And yeah, being a parent, I just was like, yep, you know, you try to teach them. And then I know I'm like, wait, did I teach them how to do that? I'm always stressed. Like, wait, did I teach them everything? And there's no way.
Everything ever.
Everything. No. And then if they do fail, I'm like, it's not my fault. I forgot. Well, it is my fault. I forgot to teach you that.
But also, you know, hopefully you just like are also have just instilled them with like, yeah, maybe you fell down and now you need to pick yourself back up.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be here to support you. And,
That's right.
you know, if you need a helping hand, I'm there, but do your own laundry.
Yeah. Yeah. Live your life. Yeah. Do your thing. Yeah. Okay. We're going to move on to the next one because we could be talking like this forever because this is so good. Okay. Can you share with us about your workspace? What do you think makes your space unique? Is there anything that has to be present for you to be able to work? I know I just got this little guy. I'm really excited. And he cleans my screen.
Nice.
Oh my gosh.
So now I have to take
Cute
this everywhere with
that
me.
are practical. I love it.
Mary, you got to top that. That's the bar.
There we go.
Okay, that's gonna be tough. So this is actually my workspace right now. So you can see, like, wait, I'm going this way. There's like a bunch of my books behind me. There's a couch in case I need to take a nap. But my desk itself is usually, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit messy. I have a lot of pens, but my newest acquisition is Miss Marvel. Here, wait, I gotta touch.
Nerd question. Is that the comic one or the Game Reverse one? Do you know?
Yes, I know this is the game one because you can see the hair.
All right.
I was like, they don't have, I think they only have one pop. And I was like, I feel like we need more of her, like in different, you know, the comic one, there's going to be like a TV show coming out, and she has different hair. I'd love to get a few, but yeah, she's my latest, you know.
That's so cool.
Little accompaniment right here.
And I would like say, agree. And then she would go like this. Yes.
Yeah. She's nodding at me right now. It's like, this is all the positive reinforcement I need.
Mm-hmm.
Like, should I have some more snacks? Look, she's like nodding. Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead and have that extra pastry, Samira. Go for it. Live your best life.
Can you imagine you're writing a chapter, you're not sure if it works, and you ask the bobblehead, and it shakes its head no? Like
that would be very Twilight Zone. That could be like a good short story, actually. If all your pops like were suddenly like saying no to you.
With their beady eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you on the top floor of your house?
This is the attic, yes.
Because you're in Chicago and they have those top. That's cool.
Yes, so it's like that's why you have like that little space there. But yes, I mean, I don't know. My desk is honestly a mess. I have a lot of pens, like a lot of pens, and then you know I like just piles of books, like just around. Lots of
librarians, yeah. You just
yeah. I mean, I think a clean desk. I think a cluttered desk. I do like to have my desk clean sometimes when I write, and I actually just during the quarantine, I bought myself a new desk because my desk was too small, and I was like, wait, I just need a bigger desk. So that was like a gift to myself.
Oh man, wait, no spoilers. We're going into question 5. How did quarantine change your writing space and writing habits?
Perfect segue.
I know.
So yes, I did get myself a bigger desk because I was like, I really need the space. And I did get myself a better chair with better lumbar support.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I'm sitting here. Like, I mean, I don't want to be like all total dork, but lumbar support is important, especially as you get older. But also, I mean, you know, publishing, just like everything changed in a lot of ways, but I still had my deadlines to meet. But I found, especially in the beginning, there was just so much uncertainty. And I think like in the creative process, introducing uncertainty can make things a little wonky for you. But I'm actually a very deadline oriented type A type person. So I sort of managed by trying to have greater control over my deadline. So I had like a lot of lists. I had like two big whiteboards in front of me that have like the weekly like to do checklist, and then they have like the bigger deadlines, virtual events, like all that stuff I had to do. But I also tried to get out of my headspace a little bit. So just walks without my phone were really helpful. I'm very lucky because I live, right close to Lake Michigan. And for people, a lot of people are surprised by what a Great Lake really is because you can't see the end of it. So when you look at it, it's like the sea. And it has a personality like the sea. So there can be giant waves. The colors can change vastly. And, you know, just walking to the lake and just being able to literally kind of have the long view was really helpful to me. I mean, we live in, I live in a city, you live in cities like where everyone's close and it's like a lot of space. I mean, a lot of people in a small space. And so it was really nice to be able to just walk there and, have that. I think that was really helpful to me. I also keep journals. And so I continue to do that during the pandemic. In the beginning, I did bake a lot of bread like everyone else is doing.
A lot of pastry.
And then I did, you know what? Yes, I will tell you the first, let's see, because I guess we went into quarantine like March 15th or so.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there, yeah.
So that spring and summer when I was able to start getting strawberries, my new favorite recipe was strawberry spoon cake.
Ooh.
With homemade whipped cream, which was so delicious. I used the New York Times recipe. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's a super easy cake to make. I'm not great at baking, but it's super easy to make. And I was like, I deserve a whole cake today. And I have some strawberries and some flour and butter. I can't even remember what else is in there. And so that helped me a lot, actually. It was kind of, when you bake something, you can make it or cook. It sometimes just feels sort of satisfying, like you did this great thing, and here it tastes very good.
Yeah, it's like therapy. And there's an end product that then you can.
Yeah, and then I also was. I mean, were you two watching I wasn't feeling like I could consume new media, like new TV shows, but I was watching a lot of old stuff. So I'm a Buffy person from because I was around during the first run of Buffy, during when I had to watch it once a week with commercials. So back in the day. So I just rewatched a lot of Buffy. I was I'm just going to rewatch my favorite episodes while I'm making my strawberry spoon cake. Set up the laptop, just watch all this stuff. So I probably rewatched a lot of Buffy. I rewatched a lot of Veronica Mars. And I listened to a lot of murder podcasts. And then I started reading some nonfiction. In the beginning, I had a tiny little bit of a rut in reading. And so I tried to switch out by reading some nonfiction. And I read this fantastic book called Say Nothing by Patrick Radden Keefe. And it's about this sort of this unsolved murder in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. It was fascinating. He's such a great writer. He's such a good researcher. My nerdy, worked at a library research cross-referencing brain was oh, this is so good. And that's kind of what got me back into reading, and getting back into reading got me more excited about writing again.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Where are we now? We're on, well, I think you've kind of answered this, but is there someone you think about for your work, or is there a specific target audience or a person?
Well, I mean, obviously I'm writing for young adults. I guess there's two things. I mean, I do sometimes think about my former students. My former students are all, they're in their 30s now. So maybe they're still reading it. Maybe they still are giving it to their kids or whatever. But I also think about myself as a younger person, because I didn't really have, I mean, I was going to high school in the 80s. And if you are aware of books or, other media in the 80s, it was really not diverse, at all. I don't think in my, I don't think in my library, in my high school library, there was probably a single book that had a South Asian main character, even a Muslim, I don't think.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it was maybe Rudyard Kipling, which I don't even.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of sort of young Samira, it would have been so cool for her to be able to have some of these stories, because we all want to see I mean, look, I do think our shelves should reflect our world. Mm-hmm. And so I think about all the kids who maybe get that chance, but I also think hey, you know what? You don't have to, if you are a reader whose identity is not reflected in the protagonist, you can still pick up any book I write, or any book any author of color writes, or any person from a group that's not yours, because that's what I did my whole life. I mean, I love Lord of the Rings, but I'm not a hobbit. So anybody can read the books, it's like so I guess I think a lot about how I like young Samira and like young people who didn't have access to that are now starting to get access to that. So I don't know. I guess I think about that a lot. So I don't know if that's a specific target audience or more just like something that's in the back of my mind.
Right. No, that's great. And that's what's needed. So thank you.
So I'm going to swap out the question that we had with one of the backup ones, just because I've got you here. I wanted to ask this question, just like personally. So Internment, it's totally a YA novel, but the story itself has a lot of adult stuff in it. It's a perilous story. There are these adults who are terrified. There are people who you don't know who to trust. And it feels like Layla herself at times, she's so headstrong, she's not aware of the extent of the danger around her. And I was wondering, were there parts where you wrote the story and thought, this is getting a little too intense, I need to dial it back because it's a younger audience? Or maybe were there parts that you thought, this should be for an adult audience because I can go deeper? Was there ever anything like that happened?
So there were some parts, I really don't like gratuitous violence. Like, I am not a person who could watch, I don't even really like watching violence at all. Like, I could not watch Game of Thrones. I'm just putting it out there because that was, to me, I watched like one episode and I was like, oh my God, this is just like too much. I can't handle it. So in the book, there was a lot of the violence. I mean, there is like the tone is like tense. Like, violence could occur at any minute upon the people in the book. And there are moments where like you see people getting dragged away, you see other things happening. But I did also want a lot of the violence to sort of be off the page, like sort of hinted at and have the fear of it, but not have it be gratuitous on the page. I thought about that a lot. And I think even if I wrote for adults, I wouldn't have included that. But that is something that I thought about. And I did have one scene that was a little bit more intense, but even I was like, you know what? I took it out because I was like, this is too much for me. But I never imagined writing it for adults, but I do think that adults have to be in the book. And I mean, there's so much, I do actually like writing like intergenerational, not just conflict, but also cooperation. I mean, like, I'm Indian and we believe like, about learning from our elders and like, what knowledge they can give us. At the same time, a lot of those elders are the ones who like really mess things up. And that's why, in the book, it's clear that adults have made bad decisions or terrifying decisions that have put
that's in your
young
book.
people in danger. Yeah.
Like, at the time. So it always felt like, okay. So, that saying about we're always fighting the last war, not the one coming up? Mm-hmm. It felt like the second that the book started, all the adult characters, they immediately went into World War II era concentration camps right off the bat. Whereas Layla herself was like, hold on, I'm seeing this with fresh eyes. And like you said, there's things you can take and there's advice you don't have to, but the adults are still present. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. I mean, I think also, like, for example, a lot of people ask me like, who's my favorite, like non-main character in the book? And there's this like auntie character. She's like in just a couple scenes and she's kind of like this, like, she's got this like fighting spirit and she's, just kind of alone, but I really loved having that in there. And she's almost a balance to like some of the other adults, like even Layla's parents who are just terrified and they're just like in full, like, okay, just this little tiny protection bubble around our kid mode without thinking about what could happen around. And Layla's actually the one pushing them, like, come on, do more. And her parents are like, if we do more, what's going to happen to you? So I liked having that because to me that felt like real. Like it felt like, yeah, of course there would be parents who would be like, I'm just going to circle the wagons and protect my own. But then by doing that, you're potentially actually not protecting her or anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
That's heavy, just like your book.
I know, yeah, it's not a lighthearted book, sorry, but I hope people can still enjoy it.
All right. Okay, Matisse, I'll go to this question. Are there any words of wisdom you can offer any young creative minds?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, if you are writing or painting or sculpting or collaging or whatever cool art form you're doing, I love it. I applaud you. I am thrilled that you're doing it. I think creativity is just such an important outlet. So whatever it is, please, whatever speaks to you, please take it. And I think we all can be creative, right? Human beings have the capacity to be creative. And I feel like a lot of times society like hammers it out of us. But I think if you're a young person who is doing any of those things, I just really encourage you to really foster that. And, we don't all, I mean, like, for example, I like to crochet. Okay. None of my crocheting is going to be like, you're not going to be going to the market on like some street market where I'm going to be selling my crochet, because it is not that good. I mean, I like mess things up. The scarf is like wobbly. I was like, oh no, there's a knot in the middle. I have to cut this thing off. But you know what? I actually kind of like it, and I just enjoy it, and I do it for myself. And so I think it's important to have, to also not be hard on yourself, to like, hey, if you enjoy this, whatever, like, just give it to yourself. Like, give yourself a little gift of this time and doing this thing that's kind of cool. You get better at it, but you also like learn about yourself. So, and then for people who have like more like ambitious aspirations where they really want to pursue their art like professionally, I hope you just really stick to it. And one of the things I always say is, a lot of people, when you're a writer and you go out into the world and you tell people you're a writer, you're a novelist, I can't tell you how many people, adults, have said to me, oh, I want to write a novel, or I have an idea for a book. Like, so many. Like, I'm getting my teeth cleaned, and I was like, the hygienist was telling me about her book idea. And I was like, okay, cool, captive audience. But the thing is, most people who have that idea don't finish the book. They don't make it to the end. Mm-hmm. And one of the things is, if you want to be a published author, you've got to finish the book. And getting, putting the time in, and also, revising it, and like, being tough with yourself, being a critic for your own work is really important. I know it's not always easy, but look, just stick-to-itiveness is important.
Taking criticism, because like once you do finish it, and then if you were lucky enough to have an editor, and then,
or even like one of your friends, like I met a young woman in high school who was telling me, like, I started this fantasy I'm writing and it's 90,000 words already. I was like, wow, that is amazing. I mean, I wasn't doing that when I was a sophomore in high school. But then I was really encouraging them to try to find like a writing group. And, for example, public libraries have writing groups. And I was like, look in your area to see where you can find that, so you can exchange some of your writing with someone and just start sharing it a little bit. And yeah, some, criticism is never fun, but if you look at it as, if you look at it as a way to like improve what you're doing, and maybe even, I try to look at writing not as a passion, but something I approach out of curiosity. Because I think passion is something that can it can be a flash in the pan, right? Passion can wear away, but like your curiosity is endless. And so like when I get my edit letter, and when I get like my editor saying like, these characters don't have any agency, I try not to take it as like, oh God, now this sucks, I can't do it anymore. I try to think of it as asking myself a question. Hey, where are the places where these characters need agency? Maybe there's some places where they need to have their agency stripped away, or where they can't have agency. So I think approaching your creativity with curiosity is just an awesome way for your creativity to bloom.
Right. And having outside eyes, because you want someone to understand what you were trying to write. And sometimes you think you've written it and it makes sense, and sometimes it doesn't. I mean, even just writing an email, sometimes I'm like, oh wow. I'm not sure what I said there, but I already hit send, hopefully someone will tell me, no, Diane. Anyway, Matisse, you're up.
Yeah. So within reason, we don't want to get you in trouble or nothing. We don't want your agent banging on the door. But just share with us, do you have anything you're currently working on? Any kind of ideas floating in the ether you're going to bring onto the page? Anything like that?
Well, I do have. So I have a middle grade fantasy coming out in September. That's actually done. I'm going to just hold up my book really quick. It's really different for me. It's called Amir and Hamza The War to Save the World. It's very different than YA contemporary or YA sort of dystopian fiction. But that was actually a real, that was like kind of a different avenue for me. I never really written anything like that, but it was really fun. And remember when I said this curiosity thing, I sort of was like, I think a lot of these middle grade books are really fun. Maybe I should try it. Yeah. So I have, I literally just keep this notebook. I'll show it to you. It's right here. I literally just keep this notebook. This label just says seeds. Okay. So I have this little notebook, and anytime I have an idea, I write it down in here. And so what I'm working on now is I also just announced my next young adult novel. And I also announced that I'm working on Miss Marvel. So I am working on, I'm doing Miss Marvel miniseries. So today I'm literally working on a script for issue number 2.
Embiggen.
Yeah, Embiggen. That's going to be out in October. And I do have a little seed of an idea of what I'm working on for not my announced YA, but what might become my next YA, which is, let's see, what can I tell you? It's speculative, and it is about, I'm interested in how time works. And so that's going in there. And Diane, like, when you were saying about this like door thing of like possibilities, it has a little bit of that piece in it too. So that's probably all I can say about it. Because honestly, I don't have that much on it anyway. But I'm reading some cool books, like some physics books, which the thing is, like, I end up having, even in like Amir and Hamza, there's like science in there. And I was not like the best science student. I'm like, how am I keep writing all this stuff that has science in it? But science is cool. So it's really cool to be able to learn it, even if you're fictionalizing it for your book.
Yeah. As soon as she said physics, I'm like, physics.
I mean, physics is like how the world works, right?
It does. It blows your mind. But my old friend was like that, physics. And I'm like, wow.
But I also get to write science. Miss Marvel has science, but it's superhero science. So superhero science is
vibranium.
Miss Marvel gets her powers because her molecule, she time travels on a molecular level and borrows mass from her future possible selves. And I was like, I kind of dig it. And she can do that. Honestly, there's really not a lot you can't write about, because you're like, I'm doing superhero science now, which is really fun.
We're going to count this program as also a STEAM program, Matisse. Okay.
Yeah.
I like it.
Love it. Okay.
So is this the audience question portion of the time?
And there's some questions that have come in.
Bazinga, what have we got?
So let's see. Here we go. Do you want to read the first one, or you want me to do it? You got it?
Could you read it? Because I didn't bring my glasses today.
Okay.
It's really small.
And I have my hipster glasses here. Okay. It's from Ruma Gonzalez. Hi, Ruma. And hi, Samira. I read your books and reviewed Mad, Bad, and Dangerous during our Book Bites event. I would like to know from where you got the inspiration to write such an extraordinary fiction.
Oh, thanks, Ruma. That's so nice. So Mad, Bad, and Dangerous to Know, the paperback just came out this week, and I'm really in love with this new cover. So the inspiration for Mad, Bad, and Dangerous to Know, which is, I call it my smash the patriarchy, eat all the pastries, history, mystery.
Nice.
It came about from a couple things, including working in the archives at the library. Mm-hmm. Because there's kind of like this archival mystery in it. And I kind of wanted to do, the book Possession by A.S. Byatt. I love that book a lot. And I was like, I kind of want to do this cool, like, literary mystery YA. And around this idea of, how women's stories are buried and who gets to tell them and who gets to unearth them. But then the other sort of thread of inspiration for that actually came from my bachelor's thesis. And honestly, it was so exciting because I was like, finally, I get to use it for something practical.
Bonus.
My batch. I know, exactly. Bonus. It was like sitting there in my desk. And, I did my bachelor's thesis, like, I don't have like, I think it was like on a floppy disk or something, which people probably don't even know what that is.
Nice.
It's like, like a disc. It was like this big that you would put into your computer.
And you had
And it
holders.
was floppy.
It's the save
Yeah.
icon. It used to be a big thing. Now it's just the save icon. That's what she's
Yeah.
talking about.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That's a good exercise. So you had, and you would carry it around. But anyway, my thesis was on romantic Orientalism, specifically looking at how Byron's poetry was influenced by Napoleon's conquest in Egypt, and how the Romantics, specifically Byron, use those Orientalist tropes. And people, Orientalism is basically sort of the Western gaze on the Eastern world. And it's like where a lot of Islamophobic tropes come from, and, that kind of thing. And so I was trying to, like, in this novel, try to break some of those down. Because Byron wrote this very long poem called The Jaggery. And when I say long, I mean like thousands of lines long. And it was kind of this cool story, which is, it's like two men sort of fighting over this woman who was in this harem girl. But the story itself is like told with multiple POVs. And it's one of the earliest references to a vampire in English literature, just like a little aside in there. But I thought it was cool because it's like this story, and it's like of this battle between two men about this woman. But the woman, Layla, never has a voice in the poem. There's 3 different points of view, or 4 POVs, and none of them are hers. And I sort of was like, I wanted to be the one to give her voice. So that's kind of where it was sort of like a brew of inspiration for this. So like pulling on like the archival stuff and library and Paris, which I have family in Paris, so I get to visit a lot. And there's a lot of pastry references.
I know. This was a bonus book.
Also, if you read this book and you go to Paris, the pastry shops in the book are all real pastry shops in Paris.
Ooh.
And that was really tough research. I told you, I suffer for my art. I was like, I'm really putting in the hours into this.
That's right. Oh, I love it. All right. Tatiana Ortiz. And Tatiana, hello, Tatiana, was going to be here, and she was having a little technical difficulty. So I love that she sent a question in. Thank you.
Hey, Tatiana.
Hi, Tatiana. In your book, you have a message. You have a message political empowerment. What made you want to explore teens playing this important role in society?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for that question, Tatiana. Well, what made me want to explore that is basically history and real life, because teens have always played an important political role in the past and still do now. In the book, the kids reference some young people who inspired them, the White Rose movement during World War II. And they were like young college kids who were German, but were like, hey, what Hitler's doing is 100% not okay. And this was like sort of in the earlier days, like, the earlier times of the Nuremberg laws, sort of in the early days of Hitler. And they were putting leaflets around their campus saying like, this is not what Germany is about, and speaking out against the regime. And they were turned in by a janitor at the school because what they were doing was totally illegal. And they were executed by the state for it. So when a lot of times when people say to me, like, is it realistic to show teens like doing this? I was like, yeah, because do you know who Malala is? Because she's a young woman who was literally shot in the face.
Yeah.
Old enough to remember that.
Yes.
They tried to assassinate her, and that still didn't silence her. It gave her, she took that and made her voice even bigger. I mean, she won a Nobel Prize because she's like, I will fight for the rights of young women to have an education. And, I think about like Little Miss Flint. Like, she's been the voice of like, let's get clean water in Flint for like years since she was like 9 years old or 10 years old.
Yes.
I mean, my goodness. And, I think about the teens in Parkland who were like, this horrible thing happened at our school and we cannot take this anymore. And we're going to march on Washington. And, Greta Thunberg is like,
I was just going to say, yeah,
this little girl who was like 14 or whatever when she started, and standing outside of her school by herself with a sign with one poster board and she's inspired millions of people. So all of those young people and so many more, that I read about or see or just, come across are really my inspiration for this, because like I said before, it's like basically old men who decide that war should be fought, and they send young people to fight them.
That's right. It's so wrong, but yes. I mean, young people to me are just inspirational. They give us hope. Like, they're out there. We need to listen to them.
When I was teaching, I taught American Lit, and I had a U.S. history counterpart teacher, so we would team teach. And we did talk about the Vietnam War because I think it's something that we gloss over a lot in schools. And we tried to always get a Vietnam veteran into the class, and we would go to this group called Vietnam Veterans Against the War. And these were young men, they were like 19, 18 years old, who went there, were drafted, forced by their country to go for reasons they're like, why am I here killing these people? And then we're like, this is wrong. We're trying to speak out against like what the wrongs that were happening, and then came back after the war and still continued to speak out against it. And I think it's, you can see like how young people are forming their politics and how important it is, and how much that can affect our world.
It's beautiful. Do we have time for one more?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's go with this one. What's been the biggest challenge for you as a writer?
The biggest challenge for me as a writer. I think it's a little different with every book. So I think one of the challenges is to be open to learning and trying things again. When I was talking about this curiosity thing, each book can be different and each book can be a different challenge. And sometimes you've written this book and then you get to the next book and you're like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, this process is not going to work. And so I think one of the challenges as a writer is, growth mindset, basically. I think we hear that as a term a lot, but I think as a creative person, it's really important to understand your work, to know yourself, and to face obstacles or difficulties with different approaches. Like sometimes it's just so easy to like face like a speed bump or like maybe like a brick wall, and you're like, I'm just going to hit my head against this brick wall for a long time and maybe that'll work. But I think the challenge is really like figuring out, well, how am I gonna get around this brick wall? And I think that's an interesting and cool challenge as a writer. I mean, there's also like other things like racism, and Islamophobia in like sort of publishing and whatever. But I think that's sort of that's something that's systemic. So.
Right. Yep. So, Matisse, should we do the this or that?
All right. So, before we get you out of here, we have a section called This or That. So, I'm going to ask you some rapid fire yes or no's. Just, tell me yes or no. Maybe give a reason. Maybe why not. How do you feel? You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Number 1, Sonic or Mario?
Well, I guess Mario, because I'm old.
What?
Mario's older. Is more old school, I should say. All right. From when I was then.
Well, number 2, Star Trek or Star Wars?
Okay, I got to go with Star Wars because the very first movie I ever saw in the theater was Star Wars, which was just called Star Wars back then, but it's called A New Hope now. The very first Star Wars movie was my first movie in the theater when I was like a little kid during the first run when it was in theaters. That's my first crush was like Luke Skywalker. So
that should have been one I put on here. I'm going to 86 the third one. So Harrison Ford or Mark Hamill? There you go.
Oh, that is so hard. So I mean, honestly, I just really love Luke because I always. Oh, that is a really hard number one, Matisse.
We can come back to that one. I can keep going.
Can it be equal?
Okay,
young Samira. I'm going to say this. Young Samira, young Luke. Older Samira. Wait, you said the actors. I'm like saying the characters. I'm sorry. Older Samira would be like Han Solo all the way. So I don't.
You know what hit me in my head? Which one would have brought you pastries?
Oh, I mean, that's Luke 100%.
I know. Luke would have brought you pastries.
That's right. Han would be like, there's a kitchen back there. Make them yourself.
Yeah. Go down to the bar.
Don't piss off Chewie. I know.
Chewie actually probably would have brought you the pastries, though. Yeah.
I know. Okay. I really like the Chewie character.
Love me, Chewie. Okay. Go ahead, Matisse. Sorry.
Okay. So now I'm going to go into some weird ones for you. All right.
Okay.
So warp through dimensions or travel through time? If you had to choose one.
Oh, I'll go with warp through dimensions.
Why?
I guess I would just like to see the multiverse. I want to see like all the different variations of Samira, but all the different variations of Earth. Maybe because I'm ready for Marvel now too. The multiverse is more in my mind because I'm like, wait, we live in the 616. I want like, what are the other ones?
Like it's an area code, the 616. That's good.
What is like? You know what I loved Into the Spider-Verse, so I'm like, wouldn't you like to see what all the Spideys look like?
Yeah,
and are like. I would. I mean, I was like, yes, I want to meet Miles. I want to meet Peter Parker. I also want to meet Peter Porker. Because who wouldn't want to meet a talking pig?
But let me close this part with one other question. Who wins in a fight? Kamala Khan, Miles Morales. They're just like in a warehouse. It's empty.
Oh, they can't fight each other. Matisse, that is just rude.
Oh, I'm sorry. Dang.
I can't believe they're friends. They kind of
Kamala and Riri Williams, Ironheart. Who wins?
Oh, they're all champions. But you know what? I gotta go with my girl. I gotta go with my girl, Miss Marvel, because I'm writing her. Although, side note, Riri does have better tech. It would be a tough one. Yeah. It would be really tough. She could race out of the hands of, Kamala's embiggening fist. And then Miles, I don't want to see the champions fighting each other, Matisse.
Yeah, I don't either, Matisse. Eating pastries, yes.
I'm holding out for like Civil War movie like that, but with the teenager characters in 10 years.
I don't want the teens to fight with each other. It's okay. I wouldn't mind, oh gosh, I know Civil War. I think the teens versus like the Avengers is kind of cool. Like the champions versus the Avengers.
Civil War 2. That'd be a fun movie. It wouldn't be bad.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Yeah.
Well,
I don't want the heroes to fight each other, though. I'm like one of those people who's like, I just love the heroes. I don't want the heroes to fight each other. I don't even want them to have such dark sides, honestly.
I gotcha.
I just am sort of like, one thing that I love about Kamala and about, about Miles and even about like early Peter is just, they have this kind of purity about them, which is like, they're just trying to do their best,
Yeah.
Just trying to get back. I love that. Early Peter. I love that. Yeah.
Really sweet. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's all we've got time for. Samira, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. This was really fun.
Everybody watching, I hope you guys enjoyed our conversation here. So please come back next time. The library's Next Year Author Program. It's going to be on Thursday, July 16th, 4 o'clock. It's going to be writer, librarian, and I'm proud to call my friend, Mary McCoy. She'll be discussing her new book, Indestructible Object. Mary's work has previously won the Prince Award back in 2019. She's contributed to On Bunker Hill and the 1947 Project, where she wrote about LA's notorious past. And her work can also be found on the LAPL blog, where she shares quizzes about tarot resources, which chess grandmaster fits your best personality, all that fun stuff. She's a fantastic time. And just like right now, those attending the virtual program are going to have a chance to win a copy of Mary's book.
And we hope that you all have joined our summer reading challenge. You can go to lapl.org/summer to register. There's also an easy free app called Beanstack where you can register. So here you go. Yes, summer reading all the way. Woo! And if you're looking for something fun that will get you and your family to move around and to be outside, to explore nature around your home and neighborhood, make sure to join the LA BioBlitz Challenge. We need your help to photograph and share your observations of wild species of animals, plants, insects, and on an app called iNaturalist. Your participation will support our city's effort in protecting wildlife and their habitats. You can begin today by going to the website lapl.org/BioBlitz or pick up a game board or card at an open LAPL branch. And here's how a game card looks, which I held up. It's really cool. And we hope to see some cool observations and photos from all of you.
Mm-hmm. And last but not least, please come back on July 30th. We have the LA Teens of Los Angeles Film Festival. You guys out there sent us all of these wonderful films that you made. Right now, we're scoring them. We're going to hand them off to industry judges. Come back on the 30th. We'll show you guys the winners. But until then, thank you all for coming. Please take care out there, okay?
Bye-bye. Thanks, Matisse.
Thank you, Dee.